And before I proceed, see, I like to tie it to the Industrial Revolution. Okay, then about 150 years ago or whatever, like when the mass scale industry, industrial revolution happened, the assembly line and the mass production happened, it changed the way the software was, or the products were built. Instead of one artisan or one workman building the entire product from the raw material to the finished one, the jobs became specialized. Everybody contributed to different part of the product, and they were at doing only a part of the product engineering. Now, when I say product engineering, it could be during Industrial Revolution, it could have been a car, it could have been a piece of furniture, or it could have been any such thing. Whereas today it is, if you go to a factory, one workman would do one part of the job, but somebody who has put up the factory and has put up the whole ecosystem to enable mass production, which means a lot of output coming out of one single setup. And that's what in very crude way DevOps is going to do, and it is already doing, it is going to do in future, that everything related to software product engineering would eventually get plugged into an ecosystem of DevOps. You would have seen articles on social media talking about DevSecOps or DevOps with security. You would have heard about AIOps, artificial intelligent operations and operations, machine ML ops. So everything eventually would get tied into an ecosystem, which is kind of a software factory-like ecosystem, which runs on these systems and processes and automation created by DevOps. That's what our vision of DevOps is. Before we get into this, anybody would like to add or share their point of view? You can go on mute and talk. Okay, let's go ahead, Anil, next. So there is that famous folklore or story about 5 blind men and an elephant, that what everybody looks at, what people understand by DevOps, and none of them are wrong. At the same time, DevOps is much more than what each of these individuals are looking at. So it's all about collaboration. It is about automation. It is about frequent deployments. You don't wait to build big releases, big sets of features before taking it to customers or users. Treating your infrastructure as code, features are switches. It's closely tied with techniques of Agile and Kanban, depending upon the respective situation. And one more thing which is not there in this picture, but I would like to say, is that it's very, very flexible. Okay, so it is anything which you need to do for product engineering. If you want to put it as both a defined process step as well as an automation step, and is to be repeated every time, you can always find a way to integrate it into your DevOps pipeline, DevOps system, so that repetitive work, anything which can theoretically be done by a machine or a piece of code, one should not be doing it manually. And that's what would ensure that the product engineering, the software product engineering becomes more efficient, more productive, and repeatable, eventually leading to the factory-like output. Next. Okay, so this again is another good comparison and it's very relevant for context setting. Okay, especially you would have seen people using CI/CD and DevOps very interchangeably. So the idea of putting this slide here was to talk about how all three of them are related: Agile, CI/CD, and DevOps. At the same time, how they are different. Okay, so Agile, while it focuses on processes, CI/CD focuses on software-defined life cycles, and DevOps focuses on culture. Okay, so if we are talking about the paper definition of the processes, you are talking about Agile. The moment you try to convert them into automated pieces of systems which will aid the software product engineering, you are talking about CI/CD. And the moment you start talking about collaboration, people coming together for the common purpose, each of them having their specialized role but collaborating, and that is the cultural shift which is about, then we are talking about DevOps. Agile embraces change. Okay, it's all about accepting change, frequent changes, so that you adapt to the market need, the customer need, the user need faster. That is the highlight of Agile. Whereas CI/CD talks about tools, which means anything which can be done by a piece of software should be done by a piece of software and not manually. If you are doing something manually, instead of spending that effort doing that task manually, you should spend the same effort to automate that task so that you can have higher return on investment of your effort. So that's about CI/CD, which is all about tools. And DevOps is all about roles. Okay, so people come together, everyone has a role, at the same time everyone is part of the same machine and playing their respective roles for a common goal of the product to be delivered to the users. Now, the third dimension, while Agile talks about accelerating delivery, CI/CD focuses on automation. I already talked about it. And DevOps is all about responsiveness. Okay, so being responsive to each other, being responsive to user or customer, that is what DevOps is all about. Okay, next. Okay, so this is an interesting cartoon. I thought it will be good to share it. So all of you, since you are in this call, you have registered here, aspiring to become DevOps professionals or to play that DevOps professional role in some wearing some hat or the other. So one thing which all of you will have to be ready with is that you have to be the agent of change in whichever organization you are, and not just have a DevOps mindset, but you will have to help all others shift to the DevOps mindset. So when you talk about DevOps mindset, it's about collaboration, it's about the roles, and it's about being responsive to the needs of the customer and responsive to needs of each other who is working on building that product. Next. What you gain and what organizations gain is faster deployment cycles, increased product quality, faster innovation cycles. So anything you want to try out, experiment, a new feature, something you want to quickly take to customer, you take it. You might figure out that this is something which has not worked. It's easy to roll back. It's easy to fine tune. It's easy to rework and faster to rework. So it supports faster innovation cycles. The cost of failure is not too high. The time to recover or roll back from a failure is not too high, and time to re-experiment is not too high. So that's how it supports innovation. And of course, better uptime, reduction in suspension of operations because of anything. Whether if you need to deploy a new release or a new feature, you either don't need a downtime or you need hardly any downtime, or since the entire ecosystem is integrated, you can serve your customers better. You have all the skills in operations to support them. Next. Now, while we are talking about DevOps professional, there are a lot of roles within DevOps, and this is one question which a lot of people come up with, because the moment you start saying that, okay, I am a DevOps expert, what do you do? Okay, and as the teams become bigger, even the DevOps roles can get specialized. So if you are building, or if you are part of a team which is maintaining a large e-commerce site, something of the scale of a GeoMart or Flipkart, you will not just have a single DevOps role, you will have specialized DevOps roles. So these are some of the roles that we have enlisted, and some organizations may have variations of it. In some organizations, some of these roles might be done by a single person. Okay, but as an ecosystem, these are the roles which DevOps identifies. So the first one talks about a DevOps evangelist. Now this is a leadership role, and the person who is responsible for success of all DevOps processes and people. Okay, so this is somebody who comes in to a team which has been traditionally not following DevOps, and tries to bring in this culture. And most of you here, I would look forward to being that agent of change. Then release manager, somebody who understands the agile methodologies and is responsible for overall progress. He or she measures all the matrices and on all the tasks. An automation architect. Now, when we talked about agile, CI/CD, and DevOps. So this is the person who is responsible for all the tools. Now, whether you take off-the-shelf tools or frameworks, or whether you build your own scripts, frameworks, or automation, this is that role. And implementing the processes to automate any manual task. Software developer, this is self-explanatory, the person who writes the code, QA tester who will test the code. Experience assurance professional, responsible for user experience, ensuring the final product is as per the original specifications. Security and compliance engineers who work with all the other roles to ensure integrity of corporate data and security of code. They are also responsible to ensure the compliance to the data security and personal data management, those kind of guidelines. Some of their work may be domain specific, like if they are working in healthcare, then they will need to be aware of HIPAA. If they are working in telco, they will have some other standards to follow in terms of compliance and security. Similarly, banking, payments, each of them have different expectations. And finally, operations engineer for monitoring of maintaining, deploying state-of-the-art software and infrastructure. So these are the different roles which are there. Next. There are plethora of tools in DevOps. Lot of things, lot of tools are competing with each other. During the next 3 months of bootcamp, we will not be covering every tool, but we will make sure that the leading tool of each of these stages is covered. And of course, if you have need for a specific tool, you can ask within the community. If anybody else is working, they can help. Community leaders can also try to get more information there. But there is a spectrum, and I'm sure it must be missing a lot of things. It's not possible to accommodate everything on one single slide. Next. So in our journey, we will cover these tools. You see this is much smaller set of what was there. I think we did not put on code, but probably we'll do HTML and some JavaScripts there also on code. So we'll cover all this in next 8 months. We'll also cover some security tools, which is not listed here, that we'll keep sharing as we progress. Next. Okay, go back. Till this point, anybody has any questions? Or anything you want to ask or give your observation on? Anybody on the call can go on mute. And
are you going to be covering Kubernetes?
Yes, we will be covering Kubernetes. Anil, am I right?
Yes, we can cover, but it would be just a kind of an overview. May not be a depth, because that is just like we will be just using it as a use case for probably deploying our application.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Welcome.
And if you want deep dive on any of the topics, you can, like, it may not get covered in the bootcamp session, but we can always connect you to one of the experts in that area. Anil himself is a Kubernetes expert, and we can share more content offline to support you there.
So at the end of the day, I'm looking to start from scratch and build out something that is production ready. No, not just kind of master the tools, but like talk about the microservices architecture, talk about security, and at the end of the day, walk away from the bootcamp saying, at least I know, how to get a system production ready.
Correct. Yeah, I think that is the intent, that all of you would be able to learn at each step, okay, what needs to, one of the tools. So tool is just an enabler, okay, it's not the end of it, it's just the means of it. And eventually build something which you can demonstrate to the world, that, okay, this is the output which I created out of the bootcamp. So yes, that is the intent. By end of it, you should have something which has been built from scratch, and you can flaunt it to people.
All right, thank you.
If there are no more questions, we can move ahead.
Yes, one more thing I would like to add. So intention of this bootcamp is like, after the end of this bootcamp, all of us should be able to implement these to the real life projects. So maybe in their own project, or maybe if they want to go out and search for a job. So this all knowledge should be able to help them to grab a job, as well as to implement these DevOps practices in their own organizations. So that would be the main core takeaway from this bootcamp.
Thank you.
I have one more question, please. In the coding part, what languages will be covered, or what language will be covered in this bootcamp?
Okay, so we will not be going deep dive into coding. The intent of the bootcamp is to introduce you to the DevOps. One of the eligibility criteria or intent was that you should have some background in coding. Irrespective of any language, you should have written some code or some scripts. But and we will leave that flexibility with you for the projects that you do, which language you want to choose. No restriction there. But in the last bootcamp, which we did, the most people chose HTML. They went about creating a portal as well as some bit of Java. Okay, but that would be left to your choice. What kind of what project you pick up. So the goal is that whatever you pick up, whatever you build, whatever language you choose, you should be able to traverse the entire life cycle of DevOps, use one tool at least, and be able to firsthand achieve the benefits of having a DevOps knowledge. Okay, so I'll just move ahead. Go back. Yeah. So this is the career path, which is there. I've taken it from one of the e-learning sites, Eureka. That as you start with some programming language or scripting language, keep learning with basic tools, version control, build automation, config management, CI/CD, test automation, logging, monitoring, database management, containerization, orchestration, cloud, and so that completes in terms of the basic skill set. And all of these will get covered in the bootcamp. Next. So that is another important aspect I picked up. Now, one of the reasons lot of people are registering here, and that's what our surveys also showed, that it's as a career acceleration path. And many of the people who are either in operations or L1, L2 support or manual testing or configuration management, release management, they are finding that after a couple of years that becomes stagnation, and if they have not chosen pure programming role through which they can step up into senior programmers and architect roles, they are getting stuck. And in terms of career growth or remuneration growth, now this is where, like, if you catapult yourself through DevOps, you can really get into the high remuneration bracket and grow in terms of your role progression. So this is and there is one survey talking about the salaries of DevOps engineer in different organizations. Next. Okay, so we are at the end of this second topic for today. Any questions?
Yes, one question here. Just, are you going to share this presentation afterwards?
Okay, so the presentation itself will not be shared, but whatever, this whole session is being recorded. So this session will be available on YouTube. So you might not be able to download slides, but you will be able to go through that entire session and these slides in form of a video.
So Dheeraj, I think there is one question regarding the continuous testing and integration. So this question is from Sandeep chat. So I just want to clarify on this part, like the main intention is to get to know the basics of the DevOps pipeline, basics as well as the advanced. So continuous testing is basically just a, how do you integrate your already existing automation frameworks to the DevOps pipeline. So that would be the more intention. So just to create a sample automation scripts or tools or framework, probably we may use a couple of tools based upon whether it is a Selenium ID or it's a Catalan. So that we may go into, but otherwise the main intention would be to integrate these already available frameworks with the DevOps pipeline. Okay, so I hope this answers your question, Sandeep. Okay. So there is another question from Himanshi. So we will go through the tools at each phase of the DevOps. Yes, Shivani. So that is correct thing. So we will be covering different tools which are you can map to the different stages of the SDLC, so that you can do the complete you can just visualize the complete CI/CD pipeline. So these tools are just you can just visualize what are the different phases of the DevOps pipeline which we need to do, and selection of these tools may change based upon your project and what type of a technology you are using. So that choice of tools may change. So I hope this also answers your question.
Yes, it does.
Okay. So there is a question from Ashwani. So obviously, microservice architecture, orchestration technologies like Kubernetes and those things, they are real future. Not just with respect to the deployment, but these also becomes important when we talk DevOps, because ultimately whole deployment, we have to basically automate the deployment using the pipelines itself. So any other question which I think if we have we are not able to pick and answer it, so maybe let us know.